You're tuning into the X Factor of Safety. I'm your host, Pedro Maciel. Here at the X Factor of Safety, we like to discuss industry topics, both safety and not safety. We dive into daily lives of safety pros and various industry leaders, digging deep and finding out what their X Factor is. Welcome back. So on this episode, we end up talking to Camille Oakes, who is a seasoned safety professional. We dive into a little bit about, her presentation at Safety 2020. We even go into how she got into safety and what makes her so passionate about being a good safety professional. So without further ado, here we go. Let's jump right into the episode.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. This exciting new episode, I know I've had a little bit of time off, but this exciting episode, we have the one, the only Miss Camille Oakes. Miss Camille, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Firstly, thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really happy to be here. I saw a meme once that said, you're officially in your 30s when you've been on a podcast. So I did it.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, but I'm really happy to be here. I'm coming off of Safety 2020 last week. So I'm feeling really good about the engagement that I got from everybody. But, I'll just do a little kind of intro about who I am. I'm Camille. I've been in safety for about 14 years. I'm originally from Baltimore, but I've been in beautiful Atlanta, Georgia, sweating for 14 years, essentially. And most of my history is in logistics and supply chain, distribution centers, transportation, all that sort of stuff. And really what happened in this 14 years was I figured out the things that I'm good at, and I wanted to essentially make a career around the things that I'm good at. So I'm about a year into managing my own company, which I call Better Safety. And in my history, I've basically been an on-site safety professional, I've been an outside consultant, and I've been an internal consultant. And in all of those roles, what I ended up veering towards is mentoring and helping improve the other safety professionals that I worked with. So people that were, an ops supervisor told to be, now you're in charge of safety and they have no idea what they're doing, or, direct reports, or really just anybody who had any sort of say in safety. The way that I managed it was just spending my time teaching. And I had a lot of failures and a lot of successes, and the successes came when I focused on that. So that's really what I do now is focus on building better safety leaders, whether that be ops people or safety professionals. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's funny that you say that you build safety people. And I like how you put it, because ops leaders, your frontline people, they're all safety people as well. They're the ones that deal with it, but you're building an entire, company's culture in a sense to, and like your company, Better Safety.
Yeah.
And that segues into my next question. So why did you get into safety? What was your one driving factor that pushed you to go to safety?
Good question. So lots of people have a somewhat similar story. I went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. So I'll say it again because but everybody always says, what? Where was it? What's it called? Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. So I went to school to be a pilot. And one of the classes I was in was essentially an intro to safety, and it was focused on occupational safety. And I was literally in that class, and I got a phone call that my brother was injured at work.
Wow.
So it's wild, the timing sounds ridiculous, but I was literally sitting in that class and my dad called to tell me that. Now my brother is in HVAC. So he's been a plumber and he started as like an apprentice and he went to a Votech high school. So he was really young when this happened. He was probably 19 and I was 18 and in school. And really I saw from there, he lifted up a 200-pound pipe and he hurt his upper back, cervical, herniated disc, everything. And really my focus came on not necessarily, everybody has the right to go home safe, because sure. But really what I didn't like was how his company treated him afterwards and how much blame they put on him. He ended up, had several surgeries, steroid injections, ended up going bankrupt for like the length of time he couldn't work and his company was not, taking care of him. And his takeaway and the company's takeaway was essentially, if he wasn't such an idiot and didn't try to lift it up by himself, then he wouldn't have been hurt. And that's what got me into it, because I know him and I know he's not an idiot. And I also am a problem solver by nature. And I know that doesn't solve problems to just say, well, hey, just don't be dumb next time. He hurt himself. He's aware he shouldn't have done it. It hurt. So I think that's sort of where I headed in my career, that yes, he contributed to that, but also his company contributed to that with their culture and their decisions. And, did he have anybody to help him lift? Why does the pipe need to be lifted in the first place? What is the culture of a construction site that's probably full of all men? Like, what are the chances he was going to ask for help? How many times had it been a good thing that he had done this without help? So just lots of ideas coming out from there that kind of spurred me to pursue from there.
Nice. And a good backstory. And it definitely helps our audience feel why you're so passionate about what you do. And if, you attended, Safety 2020, if you've ever seen Camille speak or teach, she's great at what she does. So very passionate and a good backstory. And again, a lot of safety professionals get in it, they're sometimes pushed in it and said, hey, I need you to be the safety guy or gal now. And it definitely, stems beyond that. And okay, I have to do a job, but understanding what it truly means to be a safety professional and having that drive and something so personal, like, your story, it definitely hits home. So
it brings me back a lot, on those days when I'm just like, another recordable, oh my God, another injury. And you're just, how much could I possibly do? And people are just not listening and you get really frustrated. And then I think about one of these people has a sister and a family and, especially because it was an injury, a lot of safety people have the stories of amputation or fatality or something like that. And mine was a back injury. And that's what are the most common injuries, certainly in my industry. But, that is life-changing and horrible. And he's pretty much in pain still today, 14 years later, 16 years later. So
wow,
it brings me back to staying motivated.
Oh yeah, definitely. And a family member at that, close friend, a colleague, you feel for them, but again, it hits home because it's a family member.
Sure.
So, and, again, like you said, those MSDs definitely are the ones that, you don't feel it now, or when you do feel it, it just goes on and on and on. Yeah. And, a lifetime of pain and suffering. And again, companies, well, he shouldn't have lifted that way, or, stop being an idiot. And, that really pisses me off. And I like to help people understand the why behind something.
Yeah.
So now, why better safety? Obviously, your story just gave us the answer, but your company. Why better safety?
Well, in those roles, so my last company before I started my own, I was a regional safety manager, and I had when I started probably 45 warehouses throughout the Southeast that I was had some sort of, I was in charge of safety, quote unquote. Obviously the people there were in charge of it. I was in my office in Atlanta, but I had oversight of safety for. When I left 2 years later, when I left that company, I was at 65. So 40 to 65. So that many sites I couldn't possibly manage. And so I found myself naturally doing this, thinking of, instead of it just being me, why can't I take those 65, what were they called there? Safety champions. Some were actual safety managers. Some were soups that were told to be safety people. Mm-hmm. Some were, degreed ASP, GSP, like that kind of safety professional, that path. But all of them were lost. And instead of it being just me, I really tried to just make them better. Mm-hmm. And I instituted like a 2-day workshop that was literally, it was like, what is a recordable? What is OSHA? What are the bare rules around powered industrial trucks? Mm. And then what is behavior-based safety? And I called it like intro and then level 2. And I got so much out of watching them learn these principles and stuff that, I've been lucky to have the education part of and be able to pursue undergrad and graduate degree and to be able to like learn it in that way. But everybody doesn't have that opportunity, nor is it interesting necessarily to read it in a textbook. But the way that I could, take an ops supervisor and have them get excited about the concepts of safety, and they connected with each other and everything like that. That's what I wanted to do full time. And I call it better safety because I was sitting mulling over an idea for it, and I was in an office and I saw a sign that said better safe than sorry. And I just looked at it and said, better safe. Like, I believe in continual improvement. I believe in continual education. I believe in essentially relentless continual improvement, always be getting better. Mm-hmm. And, if you say you want to be world-class safety, that's a goal you can achieve. Right. If you say you want to be better at it, you can just always keep doing that. You can always get better at it. And what I connect it with is you use better safety to create better culture, better training, and better business. I'm a kind of business-minded safety professional that we're here to help the organization meet their goals and not to stop them. We should be the yes if and not the no because people.
Oh yeah, I definitely totally 100% agree with you, because a lot of times you get into an organization and they're like, oh damn, here comes a safety person. Right. They're here to stop us doing work and we're trying to get production and make money, right. But we are the resource to help you stay safe, to help you go home, and understanding and giving you that knowledge so you can understand and then possibly show it to the next person that you're supervising, or the new guy that comes in, right, on why that person has to do it safely.
Yeah. I also had a direct report position open, and I did so many interviews, and I asked them at the end, because of my personal story with my brother, my last question I would ask was, if you have an associate who's injured, whose fault is it? And I was astonished. I probably interviewed 30 people for that position over 5-6 months. Almost every person said, well, it depends what the policy was. Was the person following the policy? Everything ended up being it's the associate's fault. And these were people who were looking for their first position in safety. These were people who had been in the military, who had safety positions there. These were former firefighters. These were people with degrees too in safety coming out and still thinking this way. And I was just, astounded at it and a little bit pissed off that people, people who have the same career as us are doing it in such a way that I think makes their job harder and then makes our jobs harder because we come in after them, and all of our ops leaders that we need to agree with us have met some safety cop or have perpetuated the idea that everything is the fault of the dumb idiot who gets hurt and everybody's a liar. And, I want to be fighting that.
No, and that right there hits home because, having come behind somebody that has already tarnished the safety brand and you having to play cleanup and trying to get everybody to come on board to safety and understand the reasoning behind it, it's bad. It's bad, and it's not, policies and procedures. Like when I, and Jason Lucas has said this a couple of times on some of his podcasts, but I do it too. The first, 3, 4, even 6 weeks, I'm making relationships. I'm building that rapport. Granted, the policies and procedures are going to be there. I'm going to, alter and mend and, make it fit and work to what the guys need. But I'm going to go shake all the supervisors' hands. I'm going to go out on the floor and know everybody by name. So that way I can say, hey, Paul, good morning. How are you doing today? How's your family doing? Make it personal so that way they can say, oh, he really does care.
Right.
Because then I say, hey, you know what? We're going to do this safety committee. I need, a couple of volunteers. And then they're like, oh, he was personal. He really cares about us. I'll volunteer.
Yeah. It's that trust.
Yeah.
I'll come to your meeting because I trust you. And I know that it's going to be valuable and you'll actually listen to me or at least hear me out. Whether you do my suggestion or not, you'll at least hear me out.
Yeah. You'll get the engagement and the interaction. And that's, again, it took me a long time because I wasn't such a safety cop. I was in the military and everything, order, you follow your orders. If you don't follow them, somebody gets hurt. But, coming in as a new safety professional, I've been in the, business for going on 10 years now. And trying to put the policies and procedures in before understanding how the work has to be done, it definitely, helped me grow as a safety professional. Because I wasn't always a safety professional. I was actually a grunt. I did all the work. I went in confined spaces. I would come out all dirty. I would be tired working 16-hour days. So it definitely, being on the other side of the fence to understand that it was, it's pretty cool, pretty interesting. And, here I am 10 going on 11 years strong. So
that's awesome.
So, you said ASSP, and, Safety 2020. How long have you been a member of the ASSP?
I joined in college, and we had a student chapter, but our student chapter, so the safety degree, 4 years inclusive, only had 80 people in it in the entire school. So my entire school was only 2,200 and 80 of them were in the safety science department. And so our ASSP chapter was like the 4 officers, like that was it. So I joined then as a student, and I remember going to the Future Safety Leaders Conference. And then I was not super active in my local chapter here, but 2 jobs ago, our safety director required everybody on his team to be a board member on their local chapter. So I spent with the Georgia chapter a year as a delegate. I mean, probably 6 years on the board, making it, and you change every year, so you go up to president, and then past president. So yeah, I was really involved in the local chapter. And then now, as of today, I guess I am the assistant administrator to Women in Safety Excellence. Don't know what I'm doing yet, but
no, I seen it on the LinkedIn feed. I seen that you're the assistant administrative director, and that's pretty cool. That's it's good having the tenure that that you have in such a great organization, and again, you get invited and you put your proposals for speaking at the engagements that they have. So the topic that you presented, and me and you chatted a little bit, and I wanted to see it, but I am not a member of ASSP yet. I know. Getting there. I have now signed up because I want to be. Hopefully, all this pandemic stuff goes away, and Denver next year.
Yeah,
I definitely want to go.
Yeah.
So the topic that you.
It's very motivating. Even just being there, I mean, even not as a speaker, just to be in a group of safety professionals for that week really, really gets you pumped up. So,
awesome. No, and definitely, because I definitely want to meet a lot of people that I interact with face to face, and then hopefully bring the podcast out there to get a couple episodes in right there live. So,
awesome.
It definitely is. But the topic that you presented, and the one that really, I resonated with was, the business skills for safety pros. That one there, because I've had a corporate safety director position, and understanding what really needs to happen in order on the business side to sell safety. So that way on the safety side, you get all the engagement and you're allowed to do what you have to do. How did you come about putting that together?
Well, I think that everything I do is based on failures that I've had. I fail often and I fail hard, and then I use that to teach people to avoid failures if possible, to avoid the same failures. So I was really bad at that side of things, and I really didn't think that, any of that applied to me. I remember there were a ton of, when I was an on-site safety manager, safety specialist, there were a ton of like supervisor meetings and ops meetings that like safety was not invited to. And I remember one time asking a supervisor after an incident to make whatever change, like, oh, can you send this out and blah, blah, blah. And his manager on the ops side yelled at him and he got in trouble. And then the soup came back to me and said, well, he said I needed to run everything by him because you're just support staff. And I am, do you ever watch The Wire?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a philosophy I live by that's on one of the later seasons of The Wire, and there's Marlo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Marlo. I don't want to spoil it in case anybody wants to watch The Wire. That is fantastic. But Marlo says to a security guard who's trying to stop him from stealing, he says to a security guard, you want it to be one way, but it's the other way. And I think about that all the time. You want it to be one way, but it's the other way. Mm-hmm. I want it to be that manager, that ops manager values my opinion and, trusts me just based on my position. I want it to be that way, but it's the other way. I am an outsider and I have to I don't like it, but I have to do it this way. So then it became about well, how do I get in earlier? And I literally I got some advice from some other safety professionals on my team, and I just straight up started going to meetings. And that was incredibly uncomfortable because, they were all at the same, Mondays at 2, Tuesdays at 4, like this kind of ops meeting. And I would just sit down and nobody would say, what are you doing here? I was a member of management, sort of, as a specialist, but I would just sit down in these meetings and just act like I deserve to be there. And tons of times there was nothing that applied to me. and I didn't share anything, but there were times when somebody would say, oh, well, because of that new conveyor that we're building. What? Like now my ears are perked up and now I know I need to be involved. So learning from those kind of things, like that I needed to be seen as not support staff. That company also, one of their metrics was lines per hour. So how many lines on a packing slip do we pack in an hour? And I remember making a presentation on one of our, it was our end of year, and I presented it at a supervisor meeting. And I wrote in there how many hours we had spent on injuries or something like that. And then I converted it into lines per hour. And I saw a supervisor's face, a supervisor who I could never get to do anything. I can't spare people for a safety team meeting. I can't do my walkthrough. You can't walk through at this time of day because we're the person who said no to everything. And I saw him throw his head back and mouth, wow, because I had put it in terms that he understood that you lost this many days and that translates to this many lines, which translates to this many dollars, which is why you didn't get your bonus, Joe. Yeah. That was to physically see it happen as it happened was enough for me to say, okay, I need to get better at this stuff. So I'd known I wanted to teach something like that for a while. It was really hard to pare down to what are the takeaways. And again, I picked 5 business skills. All 5 of them were things I had failed at earlier.
Yeah, no, definitely. And those that don't know, and if you didn't get to see, you're getting, firsthand right here from the one that taught it at Safety 2020 and the 5 that she is talking about. I have them written down right here: ops know-how, data collection and analysis, strategic planning, project management, and business financials. Yeah. So, the biggest one for us as safety professionals and those that are out there listening, everything plays a big part, but it trickles and you have them in order for a reason, because you got to understand the ops know-how in order to gather your data and analysis, in order to start strategically planning. And then, again, your big project management, how are you going to do things? How are you going to roll stuff out? And then it comes down to the bottom line, business financials, the dollars. How much is this going to cost me? What am I going to invest? What's going to be my return on investment? Any CEO, any company owner is going to look at that bottom line and say, hey, you know what? How much is going to cost me? And then is safety going to be worth it or not? Right.
I hadn't thought about it that way, but I mean, there is a real order to them. I didn't put them in that order, but that makes complete sense that there's that order. With that ops know-how, so I remember a coworker, another safety specialist, showing me how on our operations management screens, how you could literally look up how we're doing today. And he could then say, if that same Joe called me and said, I can't spare Steven for the safety team meeting, we're behind. If you don't know anything about your operations, you can't refute that, I could go in and look and say, Joe, actually, you're about 2 hours ahead and your peak time isn't until now, and I could refute that. And also it just gives you, if you were a grunt, as you called yourself, and had done the work already, you get clout already from that. I don't have that. So I need to sound intelligent and I need to sound like I understand things in order for me to get that clout, I know how packing works because I'm out here and I'm seeing it and I'm talking to the people, and thus you'll trust me a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. And see, coming from the ground up, in a sense, it definitely helped gain a lot of that hands-on experience, and again, furthering your education, like you said in the beginning, it definitely helps. You are constantly getting better at what you do, learning, getting a mentor, somebody that'll help you.
Mhm.
And that way you can grow as a professional. And it's definitely, getting, a couple mentors, has helped me. So how has okay, let me rephrase that. How has one of your mentors impacted you the most?
Mm. Oh, there's so many. So many. I think the person that I learned the most from. There's really a lot. Probably the person that I learned the most from he's now director of risk management. I'll call him out. He's Brian Nolte. He'll be thrilled that I said his name on here. But he was and is a close friend of mine. He was my boss, but the mentorship was so beneficial because there is so much frustration that is involved with being a safety professional that you need someone's office to go to sit down and just bitch. And I could do that with Brian, and he never, he didn't participate in it. He let me vent, and then he proposed alternate solutions. So he didn't, in the beginning, I would say, I'd say something and then he'd go try to fix it. And then he was a fantastic mentor because I could be very honest with him and say, I don't want you to fix it. I want you to just listen to me and then help me figure out a good answer or a good solution. And so then that became it. And I learned so much from him, particularly on like the managing of, what's that called? Managing up, how do you manage the people? Like how am I going to have a conversation with a vice president? And that's going to be very different than having a conversation with a supervisor or a frontline associate or an engineer, and he sort of taught me that kind of corporate side of, again, you want it to be one way, but it's the other way, that kind of mindset. So he was fantastic for that. And he was very, still to this day, I haven't worked there. When did I leave? 2017. He wrote, he remembers all of our anniversaries, everybody that works for him, our work anniversaries, and sends a card. And he wrote me a card my second year in that said, "You make me a better safety professional." And it's like one of my most treasured possessions. But remembers birthdays and just a real, truly caring boss, through and through.
That's awesome. Yeah, no. And again, it's the mentors that help you along the way and that have an everlasting, impression on you, that you can, pick up the phone or write them an email and they're going to answer you back, and help you through those problems, and again, talking to our audience and, you younger professionals that are out there that are just getting into safety. If you're thinking about getting into safety, I suggest, reaching out to, anybody that's been in the business, 5+ years, that has a good standing out in safety, that is doing stuff, like Camille. I know Abby, Jason Lucas, Jason Maldonado, the whole Safety Justice League, Sam Goodman, those people, and reach out to them and they are willing to help. And again, knowledge is power in a sense, and to have the power to make the world better, it definitely, the mentorship will help you gain that knowledge to have that power.
And I'll plug here, in WISE, we have a actual like mentoring program where you're assigned a mentor and a mentee together. That's fantastic. I'm sure the other common interest groups, and practice specialties have that sort of thing. And then I'll also say to those emerging professionals out there, think about people outside of safety too. So another, like my two closest mentors, especially as safety professionals, we usually have two bosses. We have like an ops leader that's a sort of boss that we need to get yeses from. And then we have like our corporate safety boss person. And, I learned my operational know-how from an operations leader, from an ops director of a gigantic distribution center, teaching me all of this other side of stuff and really teaching me what does my quote unquote customer, what do they want from me? So I can then pivot and be able to, sell him on things because I know what an ops person wants because he taught me that.
Nice. So you teaching this, did you have to pre-record your presentation and send it in? So how many B-roll sessions did you have or takes did it take?
I did just one. It really depends on the person. So I had 2 sessions, but I recorded both of them once. With the first one, I will tell you I cheated a little bit on the business skills one because I wrote a script and I have 2 computer screens. So I was able to sort of read off of, I was able to have notes with me, which I wouldn't have in the room. And then, you're presenting it, it's just you and a camera as opposed to you and 200 people in the audience. Mm-hmm. So it was, I would say, less nerve-wracking, but then so you pre-record and you upload it, and then it goes live at a certain hour. So my session starts at 11. You can't watch the video before then. And then all of the speakers were live in the chat. And I weirdly found that more nerve-wracking than being in the room.
Really? No, that's okay. It's hot out there. Everybody, I'm in Texas. I used to live in Atlanta, but yes, ice cream truck. I mean, kids come running out. My daughters would come around. Hey, Dad, come buy me an ice cream. So, how was that more nerve-wracking having the chat versus being in person?
I don't know. I was surprised by it, but having maybe, you're watching yourself, so that's uncomfortable. To sit and watch a video of yourself is probably, it's on the list of. It's on the high list of things I don't like, is to watch a video of myself. And then I guess I was just nervous about what people would ask in the chat. It's the internet, so it's a little bit different than somebody's not going to raise their hand and say something super mean in a room when we're face to face, but they might do it in a chat or in the comments. So, maybe I was worried about control.
Oh no, and it was crazy that you said it because after Safety 2020, the Safety Justice League had their little happy hour, and I ended up attending, and sure enough, you had some trolls that came in the chat, and it was crazy. Jason Lucas, he was just like bye.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and again, I hate to say it, but I'm not an ASSP member, but I am going to become one and be part of the local chapter once I stop traveling, and I'm actually back in Houston full time. But so what advice would you give a younger Camille?
Oh, well, I think a lot of my troubles came from imposter syndrome. I think you have to just embrace that you're going to fail and that it's okay. I also would say, don't be afraid to ask questions, because once I got over that, fear of looking stupid or, fear of people finding out I don't know anything. If I asked a question, when I started doing that, if I asked a question, there was always somebody else in the room who needed that same question asked, about big things that it would be crazy that we don't understand, but 4 of us in a room of 10 don't understand. So I would say, I would tell her to have more confidence, but you only get confidence by, having failure and surviving the failure. So it wouldn't work. The advice wouldn't work, but that's the advice I would give.
Nice. So what's in the playlist? What's in your podcast playlist and your playing this? What would get you hyped?
Well, I do a lot of audiobooks.
Okay.
I love Dax Shepard, Armchair Expert, big Armchair Expert podcast fan. Safety Justice League, obviously. X Factor Safety. Yeah.
Woohoo. Yes.
I have a career coach that I used a year ago that really got like my mind right. And her name is Talia Deljoux, and she has a podcast called Sincerely Me. And it's really, I like stuff I like everything related to psychology. Why do people do what they do? Why do they act the way that they act? That's what I like about Armchair Expert is it's sort of like an hour of therapy with Dax Shepard randomly. And then there's Esther Perel. Have you heard of her? Mm-hmm. Esther Perel. So she has a podcast called Where Should We Begin? And it's an hour of marriage therapy of just a couple in therapy. Just here they are. Wow. And you're hearing a real live hour of therapy. And it's fantastic. And she also she's pivoting and she started a podcast that's about relationships at work. And she had one episode which was with Adam Grant, who is like a Harvard professor about happiness and the art of work, the art and science of work, where they just talk about, what is trust in a work relationship. And so I find all that kind of stuff, how people relate to each other, really, really interesting.
Nice.
Other than that, it's mostly Disney because I have a 3-year-old. So a lot of Moana.
Hey. No, and it I have 4 daughters, so I definitely know. Luckily, they're my oldest is fixing to be 15, and my youngest just turned 9. Okay. That was so. Tears. It still brings tears to my eye. But she turned 9, and to this day, she's still my baby, and I could see her sitting there singing, "Let it go, let it go," and having the dress, and it's just they grow up so quick. Time flies.
Yeah.
So, and having kids, have you grown and evolved as a safety professional, and has it bettered your parenting?
That's a very good question. Kids are
pains in the asses sometimes. Yes. It's okay to say it.
They're mirrors,
Yes.
And you really have to just be on your best behavior because they copy from you and they call you on everything. Mm-hmm. And that's made me, I've become patient in a way I didn't know I could be. And I've become obviously a lot more family focused because I can't be any other way. Mm-hmm. But a lot more like work is not the end all be all, because you have this family. And then that sort of makes me better at relating to other human beings at work because, I remember having a conversation with a consultant about a program we had instituted that was their program. We had like a monthly update call. How's it going? What do you need from us? And he said, I was like, we did these 15 things this month, but it wasn't enough. And he said, just because you can do that many things doesn't mean everybody else can. And that was a really pivotal moment to me. Like, the amount that I would be able to get done in a day, mentally, physically, emotionally, in a day when I was 22 without kids, compared to now at 35 with kids, like, it's just different. And I would not have understood people with children until I had a kid.
Mm-hmm. No, and it definitely. Not having kids and being in the workforce, again, I'm still a workaholic. My daughters know it. My wife knows it. I constantly am going, but you finally come to that realization, especially when they get older and they're teenagers. They're like, Dad, I need to go to a soccer game, or Dad, I need you to build me this, bookcase. And, I'm always at work. So then you find that work-life balance. And then, like you said, you figure out the people that are on the front lines, how do you think their families and their loved ones are feeling? So, so definitely, it's good that they're here. Again, sometimes they're a pain in the ass, but but love them to death. They definitely keep me grounded. My wife keeps me grounded, and again, like you said, they're mayors, and they are quick to call us on on what we are doing. And we are hoping to raise good members of society. I'm hoping to raise a couple of safety pros so that way they can take over the business once I, retire and go travel the world. So with that being said, how have you evolved completely from the time you got into safety or, getting out of school to now? You said 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
How have you evolved over those 14 years as a safety professional?
I remember finding the degree as an option, and telling my college boyfriend, a job where I just tell everybody what to do all the time, that's perfect for me. And that's what I thought it was. And that's really how I behaved. So that's probably why, they say, again, I'm a psychology nerd, what you don't like in other people is what you see in yourself, what you don't like in yourself. So I think I go there's a list of rules. I tell people to follow the rules. If they don't follow the rules, I write them up. They have to listen. And if they don't, they're in trouble. And I think that I evolved from all of those failures of I remember one time I was working night shift and I suggested something to the night shift crew who never saw me, and I just remember a head shake and she don't know. And it was awful for me, but in their mind, I didn't know. And I surely didn't know, and I think that I've changed in that safety is not a list of rules that you enforce. And also, forgiving myself for not knowing everything and not being embarrassed about that, because you can't do safety unless you are interacting and engaging with the people who have all of the knowledge. I'm not going to become a better forklift driver than somebody who has driven it for 30 years. And I'm never going to know how to weld. That's not in my wheelhouse. But I am going to be an excellent facilitator and bring in the welders and be able to challenge their thinking on what's a safe way to do it, what's an at-risk way, what's a better way to do it, and then sell that to the leadership so that they buy whatever we need to buy.
Right.
I think I've changed and evolved just because of hitting so many roadblocks with other methods.
And segueing into that, you said roadblocks and obstacles. What has been your biggest challenge as a safety professional?
A very common thing that I hear about the way that I do things, a really common thing is somebody will say, it's not just all donuts and hugs. You can't just be nice to everybody. We can't just let everybody get away with everything. And I don't think that's what I'm advocating. But there's always one person in a class when I talk about, well, what did we do to contribute to the associate getting injured? And, I'm talking a lot about like the touchy-feely side of safety, but I am also big time into system safety and into safety as a science. Mm-hmm. And as a big, large system that you can break down into little parts, and the humans are a part of that, but it's this big system, and you can find the risk factors and the probability and, and gate and OR gate and fault tree. And I'm really I believe in it as a science as well. But the obstacle for me is getting those people, who, let me think of it. So a previous company, came up with a thing called a safety workshop. And it was basically 2 safety leaders come into your struggling site, and you bring your entire leadership team in for a full day. And we just workshop, what are your problems? What do you need to fix them? We also teach you like ABCD of these principles. It was so successful at 2 different locations, 3 different locations, that a ops leader said, I want it at all 30 of my locations. There weren't enough of us to be able to do it like this. And the top safety person at that company got into a fight on the phone with that ops leader and said, well, you can do it, you just can't call it a safety workshop. And it seems so insane to like want to own safety in that way. And I guess that's sort of what that obstacle there of that kind of old school safety mindset that like, only we can do it. I can't teach it to anybody because it's so hard and it's so many regulations. And I have this like, it has to be this way. And I'm sort of on the, well, why can't it be donuts and hugs and relationship based and partnership based and operations focused? And why can't it be that way? Because it seems to have worked. When I've done it that way, it worked. When I tried it the other way, it didn't work.
Yeah. No, and again, you try to enforce what you have to and try to please everybody, but then you switch it up, and then again, you're still not going to be able to please anybody, because then they're going to say, yeah, you can't be too nice to people, and I learned that over 2-3 years, it definitely my I have now pivoted. I used to be hard BBS, behavioral based, looking at the leading and lagging indicators, and now it's all about finding out why somebody does what they do,
right?
And then still finding those lagging and leading indicators, but more getting engaged and getting the feel of people and how they think and why are they thinking that, and having that open door policy so they can come and say, hey, Pedro, you know what? I'm having trouble at home. Right. I had, my dog got ran over and I'm just having a bad day. I didn't mean to make that mistake, but they're able to come to us and say, hey, I have a problem, or the reason why this happened is because X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So it's that. I mean, again, having those obstacles, new safety professionals, seasoned safety professionals, we're going to have obstacles. You're going to have obstacles. It's how you overcome them. How do you get past that obstacle? And again, reach out, get a mentor, ask the questions. Because, again, if you fell forward, guess what? You're going to keep going. You're going to pick yourself up and you're going to keep going. And that's what you need to do. It's an uphill battle, but once you get to the top, guess what? The view is a lot better up there. Yeah. And then you come tumbling down a little bit and have to hike back up.
Yeah. And I talk about this with my husband a lot, but it's a kind of principle of Buddhism that things just are what they are. And if you're mad, we are in the business of problem solving. And if we spend every day bothered that people are calling us to solve problems, then you're going to spend every day bothered. Like that's what the job is. Part of our job is getting the recordable and the fatality phone calls and getting the rage from this manager and that manager and why isn't this better, and like it's in the job description. So
yeah, it's it's one of those read between the lines, and then that fine print down at the bottom. When you fill that application and go to the interview and all other duties as assigned. Yeah, it's in that. It's all encompassing.
I had someone ask me, how do you fight being treated like a school guidance counselor? And I said, well, I mean, you don't, because that's part of your job. That's part of the safety. They're going to come to your office and say, Miss Camille, like my supervisor's not nice to me about my productivity. And it doesn't have anything to do with safety, but they trust me. So that's why they're asking me. And that's part of it,
Yeah, and that's one of those, fine lines. You have the open door policy. They come talk to you. They, you build that trust. But then there's some things that they come to you and say, "Hey, my supervisor's doing this," and then you're like, "Okay, how can I help? Let me get HR on the phone." And
Yeah.
Again, sometimes safety has to be HR, because even. And I hate to say this, but HR sometimes doesn't understand what's going on and how to talk to people as well. They're just like, "Hey, here's the handbook. If you weren't following the handbook, tough luck." But you got to learn how to talk to people.
Yeah.
So, one final question before we, I know it's 8:30 there, and like you said, you have a 3-year-old and a husband waiting for you, so don't want to keep you too long. One final question before we go. What is your X factor?
Ooh.
I ask all my guests what their X factor is. Stumped you, huh?
I mean, passion for betterment.
Okay. Passion for betterment.
Yeah. I mean, It keeps me going, because you can have a bad day, but I'll try to be better tomorrow, And so I think that's it. It's just, I'm down to keep going all the time.
Awesome. Oh, that's awesome. Great. So before we leave, let everybody know where they can reach you at. How do they get a hold of you? Drop all your, social media tags.
Sure. So I'm most active on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. My last name is Oakes. Everybody drops the E. And then my website is just CamilleOakes.com. I'm on Instagram at Get Better Safety, and that's my Twitter handle as well. Though I don't tweet, I just have a Twitter. But yeah, active on Instagram and LinkedIn. If you go to my actual website, CamilleOakes.com/resources, I've got a ton of stuff that anybody could use, and more coming soon on that business skills side of things. Some videos of ASSP presentations I've given. Big one I give is Safety EQ, harnessing the power of emotional intelligence. So how to be a better leader by, using your heart. So there's a video you can watch of that. And then, future state, I'm looking at lots more webinars and lots more downloadable content for you. Yeah.
Nice. So there you have it, folks. Camille Oakes, reach out to her. She has lots of knowledge. She's very knowledgeable, very interactive and engaging in the safety community. So again, Camille, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for taking the time out to, bless us with, backstory and, these gems and jewels that us safety professionals like to hear, new safety professionals like to hear. So thank you. Thank you very much. So I hope y'all tune in. I hope you get some value out of this. And until next time, we'll see you later.
Well, we're at the end of our show. We want to thank you for lending us yours for just a little bit. We hope you were able to get a bit of value out of this episode. We would love to hear from you, so go check us out on the website, thexfactorsafety.com. Send us an email at xfactorsafety@gmail.com. You can even give us a call or send us a text message over to our X Factor hotline at 434-381-0723. If you have thoughts or ideas for the show or would like to be featured on the show, reach out and we'll make it happen. So before I go, ask yourself one question. What is your X Factor? Until next time.